Hi, Algebra 1. This is section 7.4. Here's your grit. Please remember to label and date all your work and complete your work neatly in your notebook. So finish up the grit and then play the video when you're done. So, factoring by grouping. This was from section 7.2 last week. And in factoring by grouping, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Whenever we have 4 or more terms, that's when we're going to factor by grouping. So we would split this one down the middle, and I'll just split it down the middle and cover it up with my handy dandy note card right there. The greatest common factor of 24x squared and 4x is 4x. Take it out. 24 divided by 4 is 6. X squared divided by x is x. 4x divided by 4x is 1. You must put the 1. It has to hold the place. To the other side, notice that we have a negative leading coefficient. Whenever we have a negative leading coefficient, be sure to take out the negative. Negative 42 and negative 7 are both divisible by negative 7. And they both have a y, at least one y, so 7y is part of our greatest common factor. So what's left? Negative 42 divided by negative 7 is positive 6, and x comes down and the y cancels. Negative 7y divided by negative 7y is plus 1. You have to hold the place with the 1. Remember, the magic here is that we have exactly the same binomial GCF. Bring it to the front and then cover up. What's left? 4x minus 7 is what's left. That's our second factor. That's how we factor by grouping. That's daily grit number 1. Daily grit number 2, we're factoring the trinomial. This is from the last video, section 7.3. When we factor a trinomial, first we normally look for a greatest common factor. We really do not have one here. Nothing goes into x squared, 2x, and negative 35, so no greatest common factor. Doesn't have 4 or more terms, so we're going to factor by guessing and checking. But when there is a 1 up front, there's not much to really guess about. What we need to do is find the factors of negative 35. So factors of 35 are 1 and 35, 5 and 7. Which one of those pairs could ever add up to 2? Well, if we make the 7 negative and the 5 positive, the product of 5 and negative 7 is negative 35. But the sum of 5 and negative 7 is negative 2. So that's our very educated guess. X minus 7, x plus 5. Another thing to note here, because that is a negative 35, we are going to have alternating signs in our factor. That is always, always true. Whenever that last term is negative, the signs are going to alternate in the factors. So remember, this is our guess. Our guess is followed by the check. We just use the FOIL process in order to check here. X times x, first sides, x squared. Outsides, x times 5 plus 5x. Insides, negative 7 times x, negative 7x. Last sides, negative 7 times 5, negative 35. Add those like terms together, that's a negative 2x. Our check is complete. That's the warm-up. Let's move on to the next part of the lesson. So, just what I said a few minutes ago. Always look for the GCF first. We are always going to try to find a GCF if possible, because that makes the numbers smaller. And if a polynomial has 4 or more terms, we are going to factor by grouping. So if neither of those are options, then we're going to guess and check. And we guess and check for most trinomials. So I've got you something to remember here. Remember this, and yes, I'm just using the FOIL method once again. 3x plus 2 times 2x plus 5. So if we multiply the first terms together, and you can see that that's done in red, 3x times 2x is 6x squared. Those are the first terms. So this first term on the right-hand side, that's the product of the first sides here. Next, the green, the last sides, a positive 2 and a positive 5. This is what's giving us the plus 10 on the other side. So our last terms give us our last product right over here. Now, the stuff in the middle terms are products of the outers and the inners. Outers, 15x. Inners, 4x. That's where we get those middle terms from. So what we want to focus on are first and last. First sides and last sides. Because in this lesson, we're not going to have 1 up front anymore. So what we were using as a strategy in the last lesson, it's not going to work so well here. We're still going to be guessing and checking, and we're going to have to guess and be a little more savvy. Now, what I do know to be true in this first example is that plus plus is still going to be plus plus. Still, always. Plus plus in the polynomial, plus plus in the factors every single time. But we are going to start by focusing on first term here. First term is 4x squared. So what times what is 4x squared? Let's try 2x and 2x. Because remember, we're making a guess. And that guess is going to be followed by a check. Next, focus on the last term, 15. If we focus on the 15, what times what is 15? Let's try 3 and 5. So this is our guess. Our guess is going to be followed by the check. And the check is just utilizing the FOIL method here to multiply it together. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. That's first sides. Outsides, 2x times 5 plus 10x. Insides, 3 times 2x plus 6x. Next, last sides, 3 times 5, right there, plus 15. Check those middle terms. We do indeed get 16x. That's what we wanted. Therefore, our check verifies our guess. And that is our answer. 2x plus 3 times 2x plus 5. We factored by guessing and checking. Let's do it again. We're going to make a guess based on the first term. What times what is 6x squared? Let's try 2x and 3x. 2x times 3x gives us the 6x squared. What times what is 3? 3 is a prime number. There's only one choice, 1 and 3. So let's put a 1 here and a 3 here. Now here's what I know. Again, plus plus in the original problem is going to be plus plus in the factors. This is our guess. Let's give it a check. We're going to check it with the FOIL method. 2x times 3x is 6x squared. Outsides, 2x times 3 plus 6x. Insides, 1 times 3 plus 3x. 1 times 3 again, plus 3. Does this give us 11? No, it does not. It's only 9. So this guess does not work. If it does not work, let's try changing the order of some of our terms. So just cross it out, make another guess. Let's try 2x and 3x, but this time instead of 1 and 3, let's put 3 and 1. It's still going to be plus plus. Use the FOIL method again to check. 2x times 3x, 6x squared. 2x times 1 plus 2x. Those were the outers. The inners, 3 times 3 plus 9x. Last sides, 3 times 1 plus 3. Our middle terms, do they add up to 11x? Yes. Our guess is verified by our check. That is our answer. Don't be concerned about getting one wrong. Don't worry about erasing it. Just neatly put a line through it and move on to the next line on the paper. Let's do the next example. So this time we have a minus sign. And remember, when the minus sign is last, our factors are going to have alternating signs. One's got to be a positive, one's got to be a negative in order to get a negative 8. So we're going to make a guess. Once again, 3 is simple. 3 only has one choice, 3x and 1x. 3x, 1x. All right, 8. 8 has two choices, 1 and 8 as its factors, or 2 and 4. So let's try a 2 and a 4, and let's see what happens here. This is our guess, and we're going to verify our guess with a check using the FOIL method. So 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 4, negative 12x. 2 times x plus 2x. 2 times negative 4, negative 8. Does that yield the negative 2 that we're looking for? No, it does not. Negative 12 plus 2x is negative 10. Our guess is not verified. Let's switch the order of the 2 and the 4. 3x, 4, x, 2. So before we put signs in, let's be a bit more systematic here. So first of all, there's 3x squared. First sides, 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 2 is a 6x. 4 times x is a 4x. 4 times 2 is an 8. Now remember, our 8 has to be negative. So one sign has to be a plus and one has to be a minus. But which one goes where? If we want a negative 2, doesn't it make sense that our 6 must be negative and our 4 must be positive in order to get a negative 2? So if we need our 6 to be negative, and 3x times 2 is what's giving us our 6x, we need a negative here and a positive there. There's negative 6. The outers are giving us negative 6, and the insides are giving us the positive 4. And positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. So we just used our check in order to help us correctly guess the signs of our answer. That was a little inside scoop there into factoring and what should be going through your mind when you do these problems. Almost done. Factor by guessing and checking. If you recall back from the previous video, if we have a minus then a plus, then the signs will be minus minus every single time. That is true. So 9x. For 9x, we got 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. It's almost never 1 and 9. It's almost always going to be smaller factors. So let's just think about that and use that. So 3x gives us the 9x squared. Now, this is 4 and 1, or 2 and 2. But think about it. Let's put in the 2 and 2, and let's take a look at what we get. So first of all, first sides, outsides, insides, and last sides. Does that give us negative 15? No, it does not. So the 2 and 2 does not work. So scratch that. And because you should always start with the smaller factors like 2 and 2, if they don't work, that's the time to try to give 4 and 1 a shot. And let's check it out. So, first sides, 3x times 3x is 9x squared. Outsides, 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. Insides, negative 4 times 3x is negative 12x. Negative 4 times negative 1 plus 4. This time, do we get a negative 15? We do. Our guess is verified by our check. Sometimes these problems take 2 or 3 tries. Don't be dismayed, just keep trying. Last problem for this video. a negative up front. From our very first video, I told you that if we have a leading coefficient as a negative, we should take out -1 as the GCF. And we're going to do that here because we first always look for the GCF. So when we take out a -1, remember it's just the same as dividing everything by -1. So positive 2x squared plus 15x plus 7. So from here, -1 remains part of our answer. But the whole problem's about to become easier because look, if we cover up that -1, it's plus plus, which means it's plus plus in the factors. 2 only has one option. What times what is 2? 2 times 1. So we have 2x and we have 1x. What times what is 7? 7 is a prime number. There's only one option, 7 and 1, or 1 and 7. If we put the 1 here and the 7 here, let's multiply these back together using the FOIL method and see if we get what we started with. 2x times x is 2x squared. And 2x times 7 plus 14x. 1 times 1x plus 1x. 1 times 7 plus 7. 15x is in the middle. That's what we started with. There's our answer. Verified by our check. First the guessing, then the checking. Thanks. You're doing awesome.